Hello, everyone, and happy Wednesday and happy June to everyone. And welcome back to the Midwest Building Decarbonization Coalition Meet Our Board podcast. And today we have Bishop Marcia Dinkins, who sits on our board of directors. And we're doing this to uplift our board members, highlighting their different backgrounds and work they're doing. We want to share their story. We want you to learn about how they became a board of directors and why it's important to be a board member and get that experience. So today we have Bishop Marcia Dinkins. But before I get into her bio, I want to tell you about Midwest BDC. We were started back in 2019 to take on the big challenge of eliminating fossil fuels, that dirty stuff, oil, gas, coal, all that nasty stuff in buildings before 2050. Our focus states are Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, and Ohio. And so Midwest BDC was founded to eliminate these fossil fuels. That's why we operate by the HIMS principles for democratic organizing, the climate justice principles, the environmental justice principles, because we want to make sure that we're eliminating these fossil fuels that impact Black and Brown communities of color who have high energy burden and also experience environmental racism. So joining me today is Bishop Marcia Dinkins of Ohio by way of Michigan, and she is the founder of and executive director of Black Appalachian Coalition and Black Women Rising, a nonprofit organization that uses storytelling and narrative strategy to center the voices and lived experiences of Black people in Appalachia. Bishop Marcia formerly served as the co-executive director of operations and giving for the Transforming Power Fund, where she collaborates with communities and philanthropy through participatory grant making. She also launched the Healing for Change to have deeper meaning of building relationships for healing center engagement and connections using a trauma-informed approach lens. So Bishop Marcia, welcome to this podcast. And for those who have been listening in, you have met many of our board directors and will continue this conversation. So how did you get involved with Midwest Building Decarbonization Coalition?
Sure. So first of all, let me say hi to you and thank you for the opportunity to be on the podcast. And how did I get involved with Midwest BDC? Well, part of our work is largely rooted in environmental justice, environmental racism, doing some work around decarbonization. And we just saw that it was a fit, for the work that we wanted to do. And also to be a part of a working group of people to learn about their different ideas, what they're experiencing in their own communities, and how do we bring together a collective voice. And Midwest BDC was the opportunity for not only for me to hear what others are doing, but to have an opportunity for double loop learning, where we were learning from one another to build out the strategies and the vision of decarbonization or the elimination of fossil fuels.
So what led you to want to be a part of the board of directors, seeing that Midwest BDC, for those who don't know, we are a startup nonprofit. We officially got our nonprofit status December 23, excuse me. And so what made you want to be a part of our inaugural board of directors?
So I think whenever we're setting the foundation for the work that we're doing or an organization, it's critical to work with individuals who you can build that relationship with so that it can be expansive. And so I saw being a part of the board as not only a way of helping to guide the mission and the vision, but to be a support to the executive director because it's vital, and as I always say that, the board and the organization, or the organization, is as strong as its board and its executive director. And I have a respect for you And so on the professional side is helping to build up Midwest BDC. On the personal side, is really being a support, especially to another Black woman who is in this space.
Yeah, especially I'm a part of a executive director circle where we support each other because as I have learned, it's not really easy for executive directors. As you may know, you are an executive director. It's not really easy, especially coming into an organization that's starting. Everyone's new. It's still fairly new. It's not like it's 100-year institution where you have a lot of support. So it's like it can be very stressful to get all the pieces moving, and support is like the key word.
Yeah.
So what is some for those who have never had board experience, what is something that people may not know what boards contribute to outside of supporting the ED? What else? What is the value add of having board of directors?
So number one, it keeps you compliant because when you are a nonprofit organization, it is required by the IRS for us to have a board or a governing board. And the whole purpose for the board, and I would just say to people, remembering that there's fiduciary duties that you have. That's the fiduciary duty of care, of the fiscal responsibility, and being loyal to the work that you are doing. And so for anyone who wants to serve on a board or understand, part of it is one, like as you said, supporting the executive director. Two, to help to fundraise for the organization. Three, some boards become also the voice of the organization and sit in different spaces. And then there's like this group, this relationship, ED and board relationship, where we're looking to develop what are some of the policies and the procedures in the fiscal responsibilities, be it fiscal policies and procedures, and helping to work with the ED with regards to the budget, the annual budget, in addition to helping to build out different plans. And that comes with having the various committees. And so, and the criticality of a board is loyalty. It is not about micromanaging an executive director. It is walking alongside the executive director and understanding that the board does not, there's a line of demarcation. And I think a lot of boards don't understand that there is a line of demarcation, and we are to govern. We are to govern and to ensure that the organization is being compliant in every which way possible, especially with regards to the 501c3 and the mission and the vision. And we should help to elongate that. In addition, we should work with the executive director, not in telling her to do, micromanaging it. Because I've been on boards or had people, I was an employee and they wanted to do everything, tell me everything I needed to do, when in fact, if you hire me to run the organization, then you have to trust me to run the organization. So I think another part of being on the board is trusting the executive director to make the decisions that he or she needs to make. And trusting that, again, it's a double loop learning opportunity. We're learning from the executive director just as much as the executive director is learning from us. And so I think the main part is being that cohesive, you know, part that helps to hold things together with the ED, not to create streamlines of division and pie slices, so to speak, because it makes it hard. And that's not our role. It's not our role to make it hard. It is our role to build out the vision, the mission, the goals, the objectives as reflected.
Yeah, and with the Midwest BDC, and I had to tell Maggie, like when we look at the structural chart, it's like the board directors is at the top. I'm in the middle, okay, and of course I have the staff that's reporting that's under me. I'm like, can you just move me to the side? I get it. I just see I don't like it because initially that's not how we were set up. Yes, I understand some hierarchy because you have to get things done in an operational type of way, but when you say the word govern, when you say it, it sounds warm and fluffy. Okay. When
Mhm.
someone else is saying it, it's like, I'm gonna tell you what to do and you better do it.
No.
That's the way it sounds. I'm like, okay. And I am a board of director of two different organizations, and it's like more of a co-working relationship? What do you need for me to support you?
Right.
And what's my added value to this? Okay, I know I could bring this. Otherwise, I'm just sitting here just to sit here just to tell you what to do, and I'm not adding anything to it. And I've been on the board where I'm like, okay, I can't add any value here. Okay, I'm not bringing anything here, so I'm going to respectfully sit down. Okay, because I'm not bringing anything to the table, and that's not a good use of my time, right?
Absolutely.
Um, so with that being said, what have been some key highlights since we have been in existence for 4 years, going on five? Um, what has been some key highlights you have noticed with the coalition?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I do want to go back to something
Mhm,
you said about your chart and two things. One, if you want to be off to this, it's nothing wrong with making you an L. And so, what
mhm.
do I mean by that? That creates the lateral,
Okay.
authority, or the lateral. I don't like that, the lateral relationship, because Midwest BDC was built off of the relationships, which made it, a great place to come and integrate with folks. And that's one of the things that I can say that that works well. But when you get into that, you understanding that because the ED is in the middle. Um, it's you're that glue that
Mhm.
holds everything together. And so in holding things together, that's why you're in the middle. But if you want to be off to the side to say, you know what, we do this kind of like, you know lateral type of leadership together with, going up. So it's not putting you, it doesn't feel so hierarchical, if that
Mhm.
makes any sense, which those are the things we're trying to break down. So I think the structuring of a lateral relationship, but understanding that you are the lead, and you have to take the lead. And that's what the middle, definitely denotes. um, as far as, some things that I think, I think Midwest BDC has made space for people to craft their leadership and to give them voice in what it is they do. One thing that I think, that I found that worked really, really well was the one, giving ownership in the coalition by starting the governing board, a governing committee there, and
Mhm.
then letting the vision come out. And the support was really, really great. And people felt like thought leaders, and they felt like they were credible messengers. And as you were saying, they had something to offer. When you feel like you have something to offer, you're more apt to engage, and you don't lose people. And I also can, say the aspect of education and awareness, and being open to that, not being so stringent and rigid that you can't bend, because you're scared you're going to break. I believe that what one of the I would say being malleable. And the other thing is that summit, that summit, I don't know if that's the Midwest BDC, the equity summit, but I also think, that's something that's really great as well. And I'll say lastly, taking what you have done
Mhm.
and turning those efforts from being a program of to being its own freestanding. That's one of the most powerful things that Midwest BDC has done, as well as keeping the voices of people as that's a part of Midwest BDC at the center of it.
Yeah, and I know staff, we're going to be doing some strategic visioning to prepare for, hopeful strategic planning soon. That, you know, what you just said, and I'm like, okay, we definitely got to take note of what Bishop Marcia said, because this was a program of another nonprofit, and then we spun out. And I don't know if people know that it can be very hard to do these type of things and to launch and ramp up, and but it's exciting though because we're creating it while we're doing it. So how can people, what are some recommendations, because people say, hey, I want to join a board of directors. What are some ways that people can get involved with board of directors?
Yeah. So generally, the board of directors is kind of like a silent partner. So, and they may not like, a lot of people on boards, may say, ugh, she shouldn't have said that, but it's like that silent partner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the board would have to determine its form to function or function to form, and so if somebody wanted to engage with the board and the board was kind of, engaging in the organization, um, then it would be, can you be on a committee or whatnot? I think another way that people can engage with the board, which I think is a strong thing to have, especially when you are one transitioning out of an organization and building up your own identity, is to have an advisory council,
Yeah.
and that's one way people can not only get engaged with the board, but they can also be a help and a support to the executive director.
Yeah.
They're not a voting voice, they're a supporting voice. And so yeah, I think that's the way, because a lot, again, the board should be a silent partner. We're in the room and we're working out things with you to shape and to mold the organization into what it should be. And from there, but if you want to go according to how Midwest BDC is set up, then that kind of opens it up a little differently, because we are able to engage with one another on diverse committees inside of Midwest BDC, such as the faith or the healing justice or the membership. And so that's a way that we are engaging one with another, not only as a coalition member or a chair of a committee, but also as board members. And that's pretty much, for the most part, I'll say, a unique aspect, in a sense, because a lot of times boards are just that, and maybe we need to really kind of, in a way, I know we have to have this mandate, but how do we get creative, in such a way that there is a deeper connection for board to be in community with others, without losing without losing focus of what it should be doing as far as the organization is concerned.
Yeah, and I wanted to switch gears with the work that we're doing, focusing on eliminating fossil fuels. And boards come. I know the board positions that I sit on is because this is the issue that I care about.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I suggest to people: find something that you care about. If you want to add something to that's missing, like if you have finance experience and you feel like it's lacking on the board, then hey, come to the table with those credentials, right? Especially if you're working with finance, right? You have to make sure that you have those credentials to um, be in that position. But what do you wish people knew about, our field, energy and climate justice, that people just are not really talking about as messengers? Because board members are messengers, right? So, of the organization, talking about our story. What do you wish people knew about it?
Everything. Hey, what people had an understanding, number one, that it impacts Black and Brown and poor communities more than ever. I think people need to know, like, all of the things that petrochemicals is a part of, from our clothing to our makeup to aspirin to cancer medication. I think people need to understand, the health harms in their homes as well as outside of their homes, and so the just the impact. I wish people knew that, because we don't. I had a lady say one time that if she knew what she knew now,
Mm-hmm.
she probably could have saved the life of her sister who died.
Okay.
I think people need to understand, and I wish people could say the word Black. I'm so tired of people saying, anyway, people of color and want us to assimilate. And I hope this is no disrespect to anybody, but a Black person is a Black person. A person of color is a person of color, and indigenous is indigenous. And I wish folks knew that, so that we can build movements that bring us together rather than isolate us in short, small ways, because we're still normalizing these things that allow petrochemicals and all of that to remain in our community. So I wish that they knew what it was comprised of, who the bad actors are, what greenwashing means. I wish they would say Black and not or. And I wish that, Black people really had an understanding of the fossil fuel industry. While we've come up a long way, we still aren't, I don't believe, where we should be for the most part, because we still don't see ourselves in the work. And I wish people, especially Black people and poor people, could see themselves in the work and being impacted.
So just to educate our audience members, and shout out to Linda, I see you chiming in. on YouTube. So follow us on social media. Um, question:
Hmm.
what's the difference between seeing people of color, black, and separating it? Why?
So, um, number one, when you go back, if you go back to the annals of time with the Supreme Court, or folks wanting to know, trying to define white, and they couldn't define white.
Mhm.
So what they were able to do was say, well, we know we can't define it, but we know what we don't like either. And
Mhm.
because we don't like this, we'll let it be in the proximity of us. And so people of color, a lot of times, they get a privilege that some of us don't get.
Mhm.
And I say to people, again, with no disrespect, I don't get to shapeshift. I don't. When I walk in, when I was born black. I'm a black child, a black woman, all of that. It's important that we make these distinctions, because
Mhm.
number one, it gives us an identity. And if you don't articulate me, I don't exist.
Mhm.
And so articulation is important. And to know, not to shame it, but to build the power that we need to build, is an opportunity for us to name and claim who we are. So
Mhm.
people of color, under that umbrella, it brings in a dearth of individuals who can either say, I can get the privilege, or I'm going to hone in and honor who I am and fight with who I'm a part of. And that's why it's important for us to be able to do that. Because again, if I don't articulate myself as a black woman, who will?
Mhm.
And to say that I'm this woman of color, it doesn't give a distinction to the impact that
Yeah.
it has on me or you as a black woman or a woman of color. Again, so that's just me, and I just think we have to push that, but not push it for isolation,
Yeah.
but to build power.
So with so this could be a whole educational series on language, which is I'm glad you were willing to explain more for our audience and our viewers. So as we end, what are some of your passions outside of doing environmental and climate justice work? What do you enjoy spending your time doing?
Right now, what I'm doing is working on to. I enjoy reading.
What you
I
reading?
huh.
What you reading now?
Right now, I am reading about Black feminism fairy tales, because I'm working on a project that is looking at how fairy tales are. Looking at fairy tales through a trauma informed lens, and looking at them and retelling them and rewriting them through the lens and the lived experiences of Black women.
Hmm.
So right now I'm enjoying that, because I'm understanding, like, where our voices were lost. I'm understanding the trauma in the fairy tale, but also how powerful we have been as writers and experts and all of that. So other than that, I just enjoy sitting in my room eating some ice cream, running from the cat.
Oh my gosh, running from the cat. Oh my gosh, I wish I could run for Lois. Lois just get her food and leave her alone. That's that's how my cat is set up.
Wish maybe she could take some lessons, because our cat is like, she's only a year though. She's all,
Oh, Lois, yeah, she's sick, so she's like,
yeah. So I run from her a lot. I do.
Well, I want to thank you, Bishop Marcia, for coming on to have this conversation with us. And so we're going to be heading out shortly. But before we do that, I'd like to tell you about our event that's coming up tomorrow. We will have our home energy rebates public input prep session coming up tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we also, of course, have our equity summit that's coming up in July. It's free. All of our events are free. That's a good thing about joining Midwest BDC. We do have free events, and we try to fundraise to make sure that we're able to make it more accessible to our members. So we thank you so much, Bishop Marcia, for coming on today. And we'll see you all next time. I believe I'm going to be talking to Leslie Jackson or Brianna Parker next in the lineup. So we have a 12 or 11 person board of directors. I should know that, but yeah, it's 11 or 12 now. And so I look forward to seeing you in the next meeting.
All right. You take care, and thank you for the opportunity.
Okay.
Bye bye.